Welcome back. Before I say anything else, I need you to stay with me until the end of this, because what I'm about to tell you, I still can't believe it happened to me. The day of my husband's funeral, his paralegal came up to me in the parking lot of the church. Not inside, not during the reception. In the parking lot while everyone else was still hugging and crying and passing around trays of food I couldn't eat. She waited until I was alone, until my mother had gone back inside to get my coat. Her name was Iris, 26 years old, quiet, always had her hair pulled back. I'd met her maybe 3 times at company events. She'd always seemed a little nervous around me, and I never knew why. She put something in my hand, a small silver USB drive, no bigger than my thumb. She looked at me and said, "He made me promise, don't open it at home if anyone else is there. Go somewhere alone." Then she walked away, got in her car, drove off. I stood in that parking lot in November cold, holding this tiny piece of metal, and I thought, what did my husband need to tell me that he couldn't say out loud? My husband's name was Callum. He was 38 years old. He'd been a civil litigation attorney for 11 years. We met when I was 24 and he was 29 at a friend's birthday party in Nashville where neither of us knew more than 2 people. We talked for 4 hours. He asked for my number. He texted me before he even got home. We got married 3 years later. We had a good life. Not a perfect life. We argued about money sometimes, about how much he worked, about whether we were ready to have kids. But it was a real life. I loved him. I knew he loved me. He died of a pulmonary embolism on a Tuesday morning in October. He was at the office. He was fine on Monday. He called me at noon on Monday to ask if I wanted Thai food for dinner. By Tuesday afternoon, he was gone. He was 38 years old. The doctor said there were no warning signs. Sometimes it just happens. A clot moves. The heart can't compensate fast enough. There's nothing anyone could have done. I nodded when they told me that. I signed the paperwork. I called his mother. I called my mother. I sat in a hospital hallway for a very long time and I didn't cry yet because it didn't feel real yet. It didn't feel real for weeks. And then Iris put that USB drive in my hand and something shifted. Because Callum didn't do things without a reason. He was methodical, precise. You don't prep a secret file for your wife and hand it to your paralegal with instructions unless you knew something was coming. Unless you were afraid. I waited until I got to my sister's house. She'd been staying with me since the funeral, sleeping in the guest room, making sure I was eating. I told her I needed an hour alone, that I just wanted to lie down. She didn't question it. I sat in the guest bathroom with the door locked and my laptop, and I plugged in the drive. There was one folder. Inside it, 3 video files, a scanned document, and an audio recording. I opened the first video. Callum was sitting at his desk at the office. Late at night, the windows were dark behind him. He was still in his work shirt, no jacket, tie loosened. He looked tired in a way I recognized. The way he looked after a trial week. He said, "Hey, sweetheart. If you're watching this, then something happened and I didn't get a chance to tell you myself. I'm sorry for that. I'm so sorry." I had to pause it. I sat on the bathroom floor and I breathed. Then I pressed play again. "I need you to know what's been happening with the firm, with my brother. And I need you to understand, I should have told you sooner. I kept thinking I could handle it myself, and I couldn't. That was my mistake." His brother, Donovan. Donovan was 4 years older than Callum. They'd grown up close, Irish Catholic family, 5 kids, tight household. The brothers had shared a room until Donovan left for college. When Callum started his firm, Donovan came on as a business partner, handled client relations, contracts, billing. Callum was the litigator. Donovan was the front-facing person. They'd been partners for 6 years. I always liked Donovan. He was charming and funny, and he brought good wine whenever he came to dinner. His wife, Celeste, was one of my favorite people at family events. They had a daughter named Avery who was 6 years old and obsessed with horses. I never suspected anything. I want to be honest about that. I had no instinct, no small voice, nothing. I trusted him completely. I watched all 3 videos. Callum had been quietly documenting for 8 months. What Donovan had been doing was this. He was overbilling clients, not by small amounts, He'd created a parallel invoicing system. Legitimate invoices went to clients, but a secondary set of inflated invoices were submitted to two corporate accounts that the clients had authorized for automatic payment, accounts that most clients didn't closely monitor. The difference, sometimes $40,000, sometimes $90,000 per account, was being routed through a shell company Donovan had set up in Delaware. Callum had found a discrepancy in February, a small one, $12,000 on a single account. He'd assumed it was a clerical error. He fixed it quietly and moved on. Then in March he found another one. Different client, $67,000. He didn't go to Donovan right away. He told me in the video, and this was the part that broke me. He said, "I didn't want to believe it. He's my brother." So I looked for every other explanation first. I spent 6 weeks looking for every other explanation. There wasn't one. By June, Callum had traced a total of $1,340,000 across 11 client accounts over a 2-year period. He'd verified the shell company. He'd found the bank routing. He'd consulted quietly with a forensic accountant he trusted, off the books as a favor. He was building a case, because he was a lawyer, because even when his brother betrayed him, he was going to do it right. And then in September he confronted Donovan. The audio file was the recording of that conversation. I almost couldn't listen to it. Callum had recorded it on his phone, sitting across the desk from his brother in the conference room at the end of the day when everyone else had gone home. Donovan didn't deny it. That was the thing that stunned me. He didn't deny it for more than maybe 90 seconds. Then he just stopped. And his voice got very flat and he said, "You're not going to do anything with this." Callum said, "Yes, I am." Donovan said, "Think about what happens to this firm if you do. Think about Mom. Think about what this does to Celeste and Avery." And Callum said, "You should have thought about that." There was a long silence on the recording. Then Donovan said, "Give me until the end of the year. I'll put it back. All of it. I just need time." Callum said he'd think about it. He didn't give him the time. The scanned document in the USB drive was a letter Callum had drafted to the State Bar Association, dated October 4th, 3 weeks before he died. He'd been about to file. The first thing I felt was grief so specific it had edges. Because he'd been carrying this for 8 months and I had it known. He'd been protecting me from it. He'd been protecting his mother from it and his sister-in-law and his niece. He'd spent 8 months being meticulous and careful and alone with this. And then I felt something else. Donovan had been at the funeral. He'd given a eulogy. He'd stood at the podium in the church and talked about growing up with Callum, about how his little brother was the most principled person he'd ever known. His voice broke twice. I cried. His mother cried. He'd stood there and done that. I sat on that bathroom floor for a long time. I didn't tell my sister that night. I didn't tell anyone. I went back through everything myself first. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not helpless either. I'm a project manager. I live in spreadsheets. I know how to organize information. I copied every file. I backed everything up in 3 different places. I reread the letter Callum had drafted. Then I called Iris. She picked up on the second ring. She'd been waiting. She told me she'd known since July. Callum had brought her in to help organize the documentation because he needed someone he trusted inside the firm. She'd been meticulous too. She'd kept her own copies of everything separately. She said she'd offered to go to the Bar Association herself if anything happened to him and he couldn't do it, that she promised him. I asked her why she waited until the funeral to give me the drive instead of going straight to the bar. She said, "Because he said you should know first. He said that was the most important thing, that you should hear it from him." I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I said, "Okay, I need a few days. Don't do anything yet." She said, "I've been waiting 4 months. I can wait a few more days. I need to tell you what I did next, because I've thought about it a lot since then, and I want to be honest about my reasoning." My first instinct was rage. Real rage, the kind that makes your hands shake. Because Donovan had stolen from Callum's clients. He had stolen from people who trusted the firm. He had stolen from the business his brother built. And then he had stood at a podium and wept. My second instinct was to think about Avery. She was 6 years old. She was going to grow up knowing her father was a criminal. That was already true. What he'd done was already done. But the when and how of it all coming out was something I had some small influence over. I'm not telling you I forgave Donovan. I want to be clear about that. I don't. But I called a lawyer I knew from a completely different firm, someone Callum had trusted who had no connection to the business, and I asked her what my options were. She walked me through it. She was very straightforward. She told me the bar complaint was the correct path. She told me there would likely be civil claims from the affected clients. She told me criminal fraud charges were possible depending on the DA. She also told me that cooperating, going in with everything already documented, handing over a complete picture, typically went better for everyone than having investigators piece it together themselves. I thought about that. Then I called Donovan and asked him to come to my house. He came alone. Celeste didn't know, I think. He sat in my living room, the same living room where we'd had Christmas dinner 3 years in a row, and he looked at me with something I can only describe as hope. Like he thought maybe I'd found out and wanted to forgive him. Like he thought that's what this was. I put the laptop on the coffee table. I pressed play on the first video. I watched his face while his brother talked. He didn't try to deny it. Just like he hadn't denied it to Callum. He sat there and his hands were folded in his lap and he watched the screen, and when it was over he closed his eyes for a long moment. He said, "How much of it do you have?" I said, "All of it." He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "What Callum was going to do." He started to say something about Avery, about Celeste, about their mortgage, about their life. His voice was unsteady. I think part of it was genuine. I think he did love his daughter. I think he was genuinely terrified for her. I said, "You should have thought about that before you stole $340,000 from the people who trusted your brother." He said, he was going to destroy the firm anyway. And that's when I understood. He hadn't just been stealing. He'd been resentful. He'd built up some story in his own head where he deserved more than he was getting, where Callum got the credit and the reputation and the cases written up in the legal press, and Donovan ran the numbers in the background, and somehow that justified it. He'd told himself a story and lived inside it for 2 years. I said, "Get out of my house." The bar complaint was filed the following week. Iris submitted her documentation separately, as she promised Callum she would. The forensic accountant Callum had consulted came forward. I'm not going to walk you through every legal step because honestly, it took 11 months and there were parts of it I'm still not entirely clear on myself. What I can tell you is that the outcome was real. Donovan surrendered his license. There were civil claims filed by 4 of the affected clients. A criminal fraud investigation was opened by the DA's office. That process is still ongoing as of when I'm recording this. Celeste divorced him. She found out the full scope of it through the bar complaint proceedings like almost everyone else did. She called me once early on. She was very quiet on the phone. She said she was sorry. She said she didn't know. I believed her. I told her I was sorry too. For Avery. And I meant it. The firm was a harder question. 11 clients had been stolen from. The firm itself had been Callum's, his name on the door, his reputation. When the complaint was filed, I had to decide what happened to it. I talked to the other attorneys on staff. There were 4 of them plus Iris and 2 other support staff. None of them had known. They were scared. They had mortgages and families and they built careers in this firm. I am not a lawyer. I want to be clear, I have no business running a law firm. But I could help stabilize it long enough for the right people to take over. We brought in a managing partner. Someone with a clean reputation and no connection to Donovan on a 6-month interim basis. The firm disclosed the situation to all affected clients, offered remediation. 2 clients left, the rest stayed. It's still operating. It's smaller than it was, but it's still there. Callum's name is still on the door. I think about that a lot. I want to tell you one more thing before I finish because I think it matters. About 2 months after the bar complaint was filed, I was going through the last of Callum's things at the office, his desk, books, files, a framed photo of the 2 of us from our honeymoon in Asheville, a coffee mug I'd given him that said "World's Okayest Attorney" that he'd kept for 4 years even though the handle was chipped. In the back of his bottom drawer, under a legal pad, I found a handwritten note, not addressed to anyone, just a note, in his handwriting on a yellow sticky note. It said, "Tell her. You should have just told her." I don't know when he wrote it. I don't know if he wrote it at the beginning of those 8 months when he first found the discrepancy or at the end when he was drafting that letter to the bar. Maybe it was a reminder to himself. Maybe it was a kind of apology in advance. I sat in his office chair and I held that sticky note and I cried in a way I hadn't yet. Not grief crying, not shock crying. Something more specific than that. Because he was right, he should have told me. I would have sat with him through all of it. The documentation, the forensic accountant, the confrontation with his brother, every step. I would have been there, but I also understood why he hadn't. He was protecting me. He was trying to spare me the weight of it for as long as he could. That was so like him that it hurt to breathe. People ask me sometimes, people who know what happened, whether I'm angry at him, for keeping it from me, for not giving me the chance to help while he was still alive. The answer is yes, a little. And I think that's okay. I think you can love someone completely and still wish they trusted you with the hard things. But mostly what I feel when I think about those 8 months he spent documenting and verifying and preparing, doing it the right way, alone, exhausted, building a case like he was going to trial even though the defendant was his own brother, is something I don't have a clean word for. Something like grief and pride mixed together. Something that feels like knowing fully who you married. His clients got remediation. The truth came out. His name is still on the door of the firm he built. He didn't get to see any of it, but I think he would have been satisfied with how it ended. He was precise like that. He just wanted it done right. I'm going to make sure it stays that way. If you're still here, thank you. Really. These stories aren't easy to tell, and they're not easy to hold. If any part of this resonated with you, I'd love to know in the comments. And if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. There are more stories coming, and they matter. Every single one of them. I'll see you in the next one. I've thought about cause and effect a lot since all of this happened. Not in a mystical way. I'm not someone who believes the universe sends signs or balances a cosmic ledger. But I do believe that the choices we make compound. That what we do in private, when no one is watching, when there's no immediate consequence visible yet, those choices build something. Either a foundation or a trap. And eventually, you're living inside whatever you built. Donovan built a trap. 2 years of small decisions, reroute this amount, create this shell account, tell yourself you deserve it, and each one made the next one easier. That's how it works. It's not one catastrophic moral failure. It's 100 small ones, each one teaching you that you can live with yourself afterward, until you can't. Until your brother is sitting across a desk from you with a recording on his phone and everything you constructed is visible all at once. Callum built something different. He spent 8 months doing the hardest thing, holding the truth about someone he loved and choosing accuracy over comfort. He could have confronted Donovan in February, hot with anger, without proof. He could have buried it. He could have told himself it was a clerical error and moved on. He chose none of those things. He was methodical and careful, and he documented every step. And I think that discipline, that insistence on doing it right even when it was exhausting and lonely, was the most honest expression of who he was. What I carry from this isn't just grief. It's something more like instruction. There's a version of me that could have fallen apart completely. Taken the USB drive, understood what it contained, and decided it was too complicated, too painful, too much to take on while I was already trying to learn how to exist without my husband. No one would have blamed me. Iris would have gone to the Bar Association herself. The outcome might have been the same. But I think I would have been smaller for it. I think there's something that happens when you choose to act on what you know is right, even when you're exhausted, even when you're grieving, even when the person being held accountable is someone you once shared Christmas dinner with. You find out what you're actually made of. Not the version of yourself you describe at parties, the real one. The one that shows up in the bathroom at midnight with a laptop and a locked door. I found out I was made of something sturdier than I thought. And I want to say this clearly because I mean it. The goal was never to destroy Donovan. The goal was to finish what Callum started. To make sure the people who trusted his firm were made whole. To make sure his name on that door meant what it was supposed to mean. That's what integrity costs sometimes. It costs you the comfortable version of the story. It costs you the peace of not knowing. It asks you to stay precise and honest when every part of you wants to just close your eyes. Callum knew that. that sticky note in the bottom of his drawer. Tell her. You should have just told her. Was him being honest with himself about where his own integrity fell short. He protected me when he should have trusted me. He carried it alone when he didn't have to. I think about that whenever I'm tempted to carry something alone that I don't have to. It's not strength to shut people out. Sometimes the braver thing is to say, I need you to know this. I can't do this part by myself. That's the thing I'm still learning.